Welcome back, guys. Or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's the 2025 Ford Bronco. But more specifically, this is the Bronco Badlands edition. It even has the Sasquatch package, which includes these 35-inch tires, and it's in a paint color that Ford likes to call Oxford White, which I think really complements and contrasts all the dark accents really well on this specific example. But while this is one of the best and most capable on and off-road midsize SUVs, it's not perfect, so today I get to share the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Ford Bronco to help you guys at home decide if it might be the right vehicle for you, or if you should leave it at the lot and look at the other midsize SUV competition. So today, you can expect to see a walk around, all the specs, initial driving impressions, 0 to 60 on GPS, and then my final thoughts, and huge thanks to Goody Motor Ford for letting me borrow this one for the day. They sell below MSRP, they ship all over the country, so I'll link them below if you're interested. Otherwise, let's dive right into this review. And thank you so much for choosing to watch car videos on YouTube. But if you get anything out of this video today, you like my style, or you like the Ford Bronco, please consider liking my video. Basically, that lets me know to make more stuff like this. It helps my video get shared, and it'll help you as well by having the YouTube choose to show you more stuff just like this. But if you're new to Ford, or the Ford Bronco, there's a few things that you should probably know. Ford is an American automaker. Founded by Henry Ford in Detroit, Michigan, the year was 1903. But it wasn't until 62 years later, in 1965, when the very first Ford Bronco was modeled and rolled off the assembly line. And over the 5 generations that these spanned originally, between 1965 and 1999, they were actually pretty popular. They sold reasonably well because they were somewhat affordably priced, very capable on and off-road, and you could actually haul around the whole family. Heck, you could even get a 2-door configuration and a lot of variations over the 5 generations of the Ford Bronco. But in 1996, Ford decided, you know what, guys? We're going to pull the plug. We're going to stop producing this for a little while. And that was a sad day. That wasn't too long after the O.J. Simpson Bronco chase, which really put a lot of popularity on a white Bronco. Kind of funny. Anyways, it wasn't until the 6th generation came out in 2021 that these started to be talked about a lot again. In the news and car magazines everywhere, they were very popular. These actually really resemble the old ones quite well, especially when you have an off-road Sasquatch package capable one like this. And one of the things that I'm really thrilled about is that although this isn't built in Detroit, Michigan, they're still built in Michigan in Newborn, and that's pretty neat. They aren't cheap though. A base model 2-door does start at about $39,000 before destination and delivery. One of these, a Badlands edition, which is already the 5th highest of the 7 trim levels, it ain't cheap. That starts at $50,000 after you add on the Sasquatch package, all the other goodies that this one has. This is almost a $70,000 Ford Bronco. So for that, you do get a lot of stuff. Not only do you have a lot of creature comforts, everything from a heated leather-wrapped steering wheel to heated leather-wrapped front seats to an upgraded B&O sound system. Heck, if you're into this, you even have a big giant touchscreen that you can play around with on the center of the dashboard, and below that you have physical HVAC or aircon controls, the way they were meant to be. But you also have a lot of other cool features on the Bronco platform that are kind of a lifestyle feature, like you can take off the doors, you can take off the roof panels, and don't even get me started on the focus of this specific Badlands Sasquatch package vehicle. It's meant to be off-road, and it does that exceptionally well. It has a Goodyear 35-inch tire. It even has a full-size spare tire, a swing gate in the rear, as well as a front and a rear locking differential, and about a foot of ground clearance. So really, this offers a lot from the interior to the exterior and to the capability. So 60, 70 grand, that's not cheap. But this does have a lot of cool features that you will see throughout this video. Unfortunately though, it's not a top safety pick. It's not a 5-star crash test rated vehicle. The safety ratings on this on the window sticker are anywhere from 3 to 5 stars between rollover, side impact, and front impact. So it might not be the safest midsize SUV on the planet, but most of these body on frame vehicles just aren't. But they're going to be okay. It's going to at least have a lot of safety features, a lot of adaptive features and blind spot monitoring, lane keep assist, all of that type of stuff to help protect you and your family and to help you avoid accidents, which is pretty cool. And for being a very tall and wide midsize SUV, it's actually pretty stable at highway speeds and pretty reasonable to drive around town and to even park in the average size parking spot. That's in part due to the fact that this is only 15.8 feet long and it has just under a 10-foot wheelbase, which is really good and really adds to the approach and the departure angle as well as just overall stability. It's about 6 1/3 feet wide, just over 6 feet tall, and then this fully loaded probably weighs about 5,100 pounds, but a bare bones 2-door base model could weigh as little as about 4,300 pounds. Unfortunately, this has a fairly pathetic 857-pound payload capacity. My Toyota RAV4 Hybrid can carry more payload than this vehicle. That's kind of sad. Even though it has off-road suspension, I would still expect a little bit more than that. And then these also don't tow a whole lot. Can only tow about 3,500 pounds, but hey, thankfully it has almost a foot of ground clearance, 11.6 inches, a mid-4 final drive ratio, and it can do a full circle in about 38 feet. And then the last couple things to mention here is the gas door is located on the driver's side, which I prefer. I just like it for the convenience of that. When you lock the vehicle though, and the horn honks, unfortunately the gas door doesn't lock. So the bumps might attempt to siphon some of your 87 or higher octane out of that 20.8 gallon tank. And then because this is the V6 twin turbo engine with these big tires, it's only rated for 17 city, 17 on the highway. So your max road trip and range is going to be capped to about 350 miles. But because it is the Sasquatch package, this is a bigger tire by a couple inches. It's a 315 70 17 Goodyear. It actually has 14 to 15 30 seconds of tread, so it is not shaved down. And honestly, the tire tread, these wheels, the whole overall package of them just looks fantastic. But then this is your key. You have unlock, you have lock, you have remote start as you would expect on a $70,000 vehicle, and then you have panic button. So just leave that thing in your pocket because you also have proximity key features right here to lock and unlock the vehicle, and they seem to work fairly quickly. The driver's side door panel of the Ford Bronco is pretty interesting. It has a frameless window design. That's partially due to the fact that you can remove those roof panels, and so that the window doesn't have any side impact when that happens. It also doesn't go the full length of the door frame, but overall the materials are decent. Maybe I would expect nicer for 70 grand, but also isn't the point of this to be able to wash it out with a hose and easily clean it. So you also have some good mesh right here to hold it. You have a pretty stable handle. The door really doesn't feel that heavy, and then there's just two bolts that run right through where you just pull those out, and then you should be able to pretty easily lift the door off. Otherwise, down here you have a running board that goes the whole length. It does look like it's rhino lined or some equivalent, and this almost looks like a rock slider too. So that's pretty neat how off-road capable this is set up. You don't really have anything on the door sill. There's no Bronco or anything written in there. It's saved for the all-weather mats. You also have a rubberized dead pedal. You have regular rubberized pedals. You have the hood release. I'm sure the OBD2 port is hiding down there. An electronic parking brake. You have a few of your lighting options right there. Ventilation. You don't have an A-pillar handle, but this dashboard handle is basically the same thing, and those are interchangeable with other aftermarket parts. And then you have a lighting stock, leather-wrapped wheel, and really nice leather seats. There's not a lot of bolstering, so be careful when you go around a corner too fast off-road. I love that Bronco stamped in right there, and then no power moonroof up top because, again, these panels can come off. And then sitting inside the twin-turbo V6 Bronco, it's pretty cool. The door line, or the belt line of the door, is fairly low, so you have good visibility. You can see right down the center. The hood is squared off though, so like a truck, you can't really see probably anything within 15 feet of what's actually in front of the hood, so be careful there. And visibility all around is actually pretty decent. When we fire this up, it is the 10-speed automatic because this is the V6 and not the 4-cylinder turbo engine, but the horn, that's actually loud, but really high pitched too. Maybe it feels louder because this isn't quite as insulated as a regular vehicle, but you have all your adaptive cruise control settings on the left. You have voice and volume and menu controls for the digital portion of this analog digital display right there. And then you have physical HVAC controls. You have the current generation system for the infotainment. It's about a foot diagonal screen. We're not going to get too far into that today. But then you have all of your off-road features. You have sway bar disconnect, your front and your rear locker. You have everything that you could want up there. There isn't a blank button. Those are up here. Those are for all the aux ports, which actually have an electrical connection, and you can see that it lights up, which is pretty cool. You don't have garage door openers. Do you have an LED? No, you don't. You have an incandescent. No vehicle at 70 grand should have an incandescent. That's more than just an opinion, I would say. Otherwise, you have some vents. You have a nice rubberized spot down here. The backup and 360-degree camera is really cool, and trajectory lines do move. I love that feature. Ford does this pretty well. You have some cup holders. You have your Bronco stamp right there that shows your VIN number and where this was built. You have your GOAT modes, your 4-wheel drive, auto, high, low, and 2-wheel drive. And then you have all of your other controls right there, and your controls to move the side mirrors, because the side mirrors are actually on the front fender of the vehicle, unlike the Wranglers where you take them off when you take the doors off, which I'm pretty sure is illegal in most states to drive. And then in here you have a 12 volt and a little bit of storage, and it's pretty darn decent. Otherwise, let me hop out and see if I fit behind myself in the back. I have to say, I love the black and white theme that this Bronco specific example is. You can already tell that the back door looks very similar to the front in all the design. Yeah, and it just looks like a slightly smaller door panel. You have a very cute small armrest right there. Nice beefy handle, a little bit more mesh. And I left the seats down just to show you guys what that looks like. Mid-sized body-on-frame SUVs have a lot less interior room than most unibody mid-sized SUVs, just like the just like the Toyota RAV4. What am I saying? The 4Runner. The 4Runner. This is very similar to that. It's actually maybe a little bit tighter than that. Yeah, but not by a lot. You still have some MOLLE panels. You still have some mesh down here. You have no ventilation though. What in the heck? A mid-sized SUV with no vents right there? That is a huge knock. If you have kids back here, little kids, pets, the elderly, you should consider a vehicle to have vents. And then you have a tiny little armrest with the cup holders right in the middle. So it's really good for one thing at a time, not two things at a time, like a bigger cup holder. And then you can see the rails that protect you if you do roll this over. You also have overhead airbags, which the Jeep Wrangler only recently got. So that is cool. Overall, it feels like a fun experience. I just seriously cannot believe that there's not vents though on a $70,000 midsize SUV. But I think the back of the Bronco might make up for it because this is such a cool view. I love that tire carrier on the back. I love the shape of the taillights, the handle that you can even tell through the latches right there, or I should say the hinges, that you can tell that the glass lifts up. You have the recovery points, that 3,500 pound towing capacity, and your plugins. This is really neat. So back here, you have to open up this first. Swing it out all the way though, so the glass again doesn't bump a body panel, similar to the situation with the doors. And this opens up wide, so be careful where you park, be careful how you do this and what way that the back end of the vehicle is facing. Like if you're in your garage, you might not be able to open it up. It's not very heavy despite having a huge tire on the back, but once it's open, you can easily lift this up. And that opens up nice and easily. Back here, you have about 35 cubic feet of room, but be aware that a lot of that is very rectangular, narrow, front to back, and then tall. So unless you're gonna stack stuff to the ceiling, that 35 cubic foot rating probably is only more like a usable 25 cubic foot rating, in my opinion. You have all the mats that are not yet installed. You can see speakers back here. You have more of the rails. And honestly, it's pretty cool. There's some insulation on the roof to help with noise and other areas where there just isn't. And then down here, you just have your tire changing tools and you have some plugins. So overall, this is a pretty cool place to be. And if you drop the seats, you have about 75 cubic feet, which is fairly average for a midsize SUV, kind of on the lower end because this is so off-road capable and the floor of the vehicle is a lot higher than other vehicles for ground clearance. But my goodness, does the side of the Bronco look awesome. And here's the side mirror that I was talking about, where it's kind of on the fender, kind of on the hood, kind of on the front somewhere, however you would depict that on like the cowl of the front. Anyways, door panel opens up large. It's all the same materials. The window, frameless, it drops down, and then nothing really special or to talk about here. You do have a power seat, which is the minimum I would expect again at this price point. Bronco stamped in. No transmission tunnel storage. Locking glove box though. And it's not huge, but there's also not a ton of room to work with this because it does have a big engine up front. But I do wish that there was a little bit of storage above the glove box like some other vehicles have. Anyways, guys, let's come around to the front. I'm going to pop the hood and I'll show you what the twin turbo 2.7 liter EcoBoost engine looks like. Under the hood is a twin turbo 2.7 liter V6. It does peak out at a pretty decent 330 horsepower at about 5,500 RPM and about 415 pound-feet of the twisty stuff at about 3,250 RPM. So there is a lot of power down low, but again, because this is a big 5,000 pound SUV rolling on 35-inch tires, it's not fast. Don't get me wrong, it's not fast, but it's totally adequate. And honestly, it feels pretty similar to the old supercharged 4-liter V6 FJ Cruiser that I used to have. But under the hood, it might look like a spaghetti mess. There's a lot of tubing, piping, plumbing, but honestly, that's just the complexity that comes with a turbocharged V6 engine, especially one with overhead valve train that's not a pushrod. You can see it does have a Garrett turbocharger for one of the turbos. You can also see the reservoirs on the side, the battery, the fuse box, the serpentine belt though, the alternator, all that stuff. It's hidden away by all the piping, all the induction tubing and all that stuff. You can barely see it down there in person, better than on camera. And it all swings back around, boosted up through that throttle body right there, and then into the intake manifold. So honestly, these seem to be pretty reliable from everything that I read online, and it's pretty fun to drive. So with that said, let me drop the hood and take it for a drive. Initial driving impressions of the full-size lifted Ford Bronco with the V6 twin-turbo engine. So honestly, this engine actually sounds pretty decent. I don't know if that's because we have less insulation even with this updated model, or if that's just because the exhaust and the intake is designed so well. I mean, it does have a Garrett turbocharger after all. I'm assuming the other one is a Garrett too. I just couldn't find it on the quick overview. But this thing gives me old FJ Cruiser vibes when I used to own a supercharged V6 FJ Cruiser. The tiny vertical windshield, while you might have to avoid rock chips and, you know, try not to tailgate anyone, it feels awesome. It feels like you're driving a tank. This thing feels pretty big, and just looking at it from the exterior, it obviously looks pretty big. Because of the independent front suspension, it handles a literal 1,000 times better than an equivalent Jeep Wrangler, and I really appreciate that. And then, while being a sort of minimalistic interior, having a ton of creature comforts and tech, really good heated seats and steering wheel, this vehicle is just a joy to drive. Seeing those hooks on the front, it just makes me want to go on an adventure. Being able to look around and see all the panels, the doors, the roof, everything can come off of this platform. It just really makes you want to enjoy summertime, go somewhere warm, go somewhere off-roady, have a lot of fun with your Ford Bronco, and enjoy it like it's a simpler time, like it's back in the 80s and the 90s before these went extinct for a little while. But even though this one, you know, it has the bigger wheels on it, the body roll, it's kind of delayed. There is a little bit of looseness to it. The steering is sort of heavy enough that it doesn't quickly turn and change direction. So that again really helps. That's an issue that the Wrangler has with the front solid axle, to where it just wants to wander even if you don't turn the wheel. But this one, you do need to turn the wheel a little bit before you really start going. And then you can tell that you are top heavy and you can feel all that stuff. The B&O speakers also sound fairly decent, and while this is a very front forward facing squared off vehicle and it does get a lot of wind noise, it's honestly not that bad for driving a vehicle like this. I'm not going to complain. This is what I would expect. It's fun. The back seats are big enough for full-size adults, and this is a vehicle that hopefully will last a lot of generations, a lot of decades, just like the older generations. There's a few old Broncos and Bronco 2s even in my neighborhood that people have kept up with or even restored, and I hope to see that these stick around for quite a while because this is a cool vehicle. But with that said, let me get to the private road and we will do a 0 to 60. 0 to 60 in the 2025 2.7 liter Ford Bronco. Keep in mind, density altitude is almost 6,000 feet, so this vehicle, even though it's twin turboed, it's still down on power, probably almost 10%. It'll do a brake rev. We're in normal mode. I just want to see what this can do under normal circumstances. That was actually pretty interesting. The front end lifted up just a little bit, but then it kind of ran out of steam once we hit second gear. True 0 to 60 came in at 8.23 seconds, which for a big off-road lifted rig like this, I think that's pretty decent. My final thoughts of the 2025 Ford Bronco, specifically this Badlands on the Sasquatch tires. I think it's really cool. It handles well, it drives well. I am a little bit disappointed in the payload capacity. I do wish it was a little bit faster, and I certainly wish that the 5-liter Coyote engine was at least optional in this package. But overall, it's fun. I can't imagine the fun adventures that you guys go on. Those of you who actually own one of these, it's cool. It feels very substantial. I'm not sure that I would want to pay $70,000 for a vehicle that I'm not going to abuse and beat down off-road compared to a used Bronco, a used Jeep, something that you're not going to feel as bad about taking it to, you know, some serious off-roading versus some soft-roading, which most other vehicles could also go on. But this looks awesome. And now just imagine for a second that the black is gone and this is a Bronco truck just like the good old days. That would be pretty cool. Anyways, guys, I had a lot of fun driving this. I've driven the Bronco Raptor before. I've driven the 7-speed manual in the 4-cylinder before. I've driven a number of these, but it has been a couple years since my most recent review. This was fun. I really like this vehicle. I wish they weren't so expensive because someday I would want something like this if I had more of a purpose for it and I didn't daily drive so much, because 17 mpg probably adds up pretty quickly. I know it did when I had the FJ Cruiser. Heck, that supercharged lifted monstrosity didn't even get 17 mpg. So it is cool to see where engineering has come. This has way more safety features, way more sensors and adaptive settings than mine ever did, and a lot of other tech, but it still feels like a good old 1 through 5 generation Ford Bronco. Ford really knocked it out of the park, and I am so glad that this exists. I hope O.J. Simpson doesn't do something else to make the Bronco go away, because this is a really cool vehicle. Anyways, guys, I wish you the best. I hope you take care, and until next time, see ya.